नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन इति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। A very warm welcome to all of you. We have all gathered on this virtual platform to understand something which is very, very real. Not just YouTube is virtual, but from the eyes of Shastras, this entire world is a virtual reality. War, pestilence, famine, drought, floods, and there is no end to the number of problems that we face today. 5,000 years ago, Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of all the Vedas, mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, Manda sumanda matayo, manda bhagya hi upadrutaha. People in this age of Kali would be very much disturbed by various problems. They would be very, very lazy for spiritual advancement. They would be misguided. And above all, they would always be disturbed. Hyupadrutaha. So we are trying to find out the reason why there are so many problems, and we are putting best of the brains how to solve it. But Ved Vyas has told the reason is it is the season of all the problems. Kali Yuga, by the name itself, it means an age of quarrel and hypocrisy. So what is the solution? Is there none? No, that definitely. We have to know there is a very simple solution. Ved Vyas has mentioned again in Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukdev Goswami is explaining to Maharaj Parikshit, Kaler dosha nidhe rajan asti hi eko mahan gunaha. Although Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults, but there is one great advantage. What is that great advantage? The great advantage is Kirtanad eva Krishnasya mukta sangah param rajet. Simply by following this one process, all the problems can be solved immediately. What is that simple process? Kirtanad eva Krishnasya mukta sangah param rajet. Krishna Kirtan. Kirtan means to chant the names of Krishna, qualities of Krishna, either to sing it or to describe the signs of Krishna. This is called Kirtan. Simply by doing Krishna's Kirtan, Kirtanadev Krishnasya, Mukta Sangha Param Vrajet, a person is able to completely solve all the complications of this age. That is why Srimad Bhagavatam further states those people who are wise, who are very learned, they actually worship this age of Kali. So to start this Sankirtan movement, Lord Krishna appeared in the form of Lord Chaitanya 500 years ago. He inaugurated and widely distributed the holy names of Krishna through his Sankirtan movement. But the age of Kali was very, very strong. Even though Lord Chaitanya proclaimed Prithvi te aache yat nagradigram sarvatra prachar hoibe mora naam. On every town and village, as many towns and villages are there on the surface of globe, people would be chanting and hearing my name. And the great saint Namalvar in Divya Prabandha also says, Poliga, 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 victory, victory, victory. All the inauspiciousness of the living entities is destroyed. People are no more going to hell. Yamaraj has got no work to do. Why this is happening? Because an increasing number of devotees of Lord Vishnu, they are chanting, singing his names, dancing and playing on the musical instruments. So the age of Kali ceases to have any effect. But the Sankirtan movement almost vanishes. By the end of the 18th century, it is gone. the age of Kali shows its effects again. The topmost confidential science of devotional ecstasy is misrepresented as some sentimental religion. Lord Chaitanya explained God cannot be understood merely through the scriptures. Pure devotion is required. So people started neglecting all the scriptures and started shedding artificial tears without knowing even the basics of science of God. And what remained as Chaitanya's movement were a bunch of sentimentalists with no practical science and understanding of God. But two powerful sons arose. Two great stalwart Vaishnavas, associates of Lord Chaitanya, appeared as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his great son, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And both of them, they again revived the scientific basis of Krishna consciousness, established this Sankirtan mission, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur, although he was a grahastha, but he was very, very efficient. Even though he was attending his court duties, he had a large family, but he was able to preach very nicely. Prabhu, this can be switched off and you can avoid this. Yes, thank you. So although Bhaktivinoda Thakur was very, very busy in his duties, he tried to preach Krishna consciousness. And at some point of time, even though Bhaktivinoda Thakur was magistrate, very efficient, very erudite scholar, pure devotee of Krishna, but he expressed his helplessness. I am not qualified to fulfill this prophecy of Lord Chaitanya that in every town and village, the name of Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, should be spread. So he requested Lord Krishna, Lord Gauranga, please send somebody from your personal associates to do this task. So this is all humility of a Vaishnava. Vaishnava is all powerful. Srila Prabhupada later explained, Bhaktivinoda Thakur could have single-handedly finished the entire mission. Each and every devotee of Lord Chaitanya is so powerful that they can deliver an entire universe on their own. So this can be compared to the mood of Advaitacharya. Who is Advaitacharya? None other than Lord Vishnu himself. Advaitacharya also expressed his helplessness in delivering people, eradicating the influence of Kali Yuga. So he told, my dear Lord, you only have to descend. And Advaitacharya worshipped, and he was, with his ardent prayers, it was that Lord Krishna incarnated in the form of Lord Chaitanya. So Advaitacharya is Lord Mahavishnu himself. He can make everybody devotee, deliver all the universes, but this is the mood of devotee. Depending on Krishna's plan, they take a humble position at times. Krishna has his own plan. He wants to engage some of his intimate associates in doing a particular Leela and pastime. Why this Leela happens? So this is reciprocation from Krishna. Just like pure devotee of Krishna has no other business than to glorify Krishna, similarly, Krishna also has got no other business than to glorify his pure devotee. In the 11th chapter, when Arjuna was displayed the universal form, Lord Krishna explained to Arjuna, see, everybody is killed. So even if you do not fight, nobody is going to go unhurt from this battlefield. So, nimitta matram bhava sabya sachin. If you want credit, you can do so. So how much ever we may try hard, nobody will be able to eradicate the influence of Kali Yuga. The problems will remain. And the Sankirtan movement will spread, but those who are wise, they try to act as instrument in the hands of God, and thus they get all the credit. So Krishna, out of his affection, he wanted to make Arjuna famous. Although he was less powerful as compared to very, very strong opponents on the other side. He was like a small fish, and they were huge sharks. But Krishna showed, if you become my devotee, then what is your life? And Arjuna was thus glorified. So Lord Krishna had a special plan here. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in all humility, he prayed for Lord Chaitanya's personal associate to come and establish this Sankirtan mission again. Preach far and wide Krishna consciousness. So Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur came. Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj, Bhaktivinoda Thakur kept on pushing this mission. and very well knowing that it is Lord Chaitanya's desire that now, so long this message was limited to this portion, it should reach the West. So he sent his disciples, and after a long but not very successful tenure, his stalwart sannyasi disciples came back. Nevertheless, not being disappointed, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had strong faith, implicit faith in the words of Lord Chaitanya. Prithvi Teyache Yat Nagradigram, on every town and village Sankirtan movement has to spread. With a strong faith in the words of his father, who was also his preceptor and grand spiritual master, Bhaktivinoda Thakur told, very soon I see that people all across the world, the French, the Germans, the Russians, the English, the Americans, they are holding banners in their hand and they are chanting the names of Krishna, playing Mridanga and Kartal. They are raising Sankirtan throughout the streets of the entire world. Very soon that day is going to come. So Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj told, even though they are not very successful, but I have a prophecy. How much ever time it may take, sooner or later, one of my disciples will cross the ocean and bring back the whole world. This is what he said. And everybody was wondering, who is that person? And some of the followers of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, good devotees, simple devotees, they thought, maybe Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he said, Prithvi Teyache Yat Nagradigram, he meant only this India. Throughout the India it would be spread. Because their experience of preaching in Western countries was one word, it is impossible. It is impossible to make them Krishna conscious. The culture is so degraded over there. A sannyasi will get degraded if he goes there. That is why it is told in the Vedas for a sannyasi, do not cross the oceans. So who will be that person? Without fearing his degradation, he would cross the ocean, defy this injunction of the Vedas, which is meant for the protection of sannyasis, would cross the ocean and bring back the whole world to Krishna consciousness. And now we all know that that great personality was none other than His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So before we begin to understand the activities of Srila Prabhupada, some of the early activities may seem pretty ordinary. That is why it is very important to understand what is the position of Srila Prabhupada and what is the significance of all these activities. Activities of Lord Krishna are completely liberating. And even though Parikshit Maharaj had just 7 days of his life, but he did not directly either ask about the activities of Krishna, nor his perfect spiritual master Shukdev Goswami immediately began explaining the activities of Lord Krishna. But what he explained were the signs of Lord Krishna. Maintenance of this world and the destruction of this world. How so many planets, innumerable universes are being maintained. And when a person understands, oh, how difficult it is, how wonderful, amazing it is. Now we do not even know what is there in the nearest planet. And when you understand the description of entire universe and so many universes, what is the physics, what is the chemistry, what is the real science, then you understand. Just Prabhupada told, you tell God is great, but you have to know how great God is, then you will surrender to God. So thus, it is told in the scriptures, any kind of activity of this world, if we become attached to them, any kind of sense object, either vision, sound, any kind of pleasure sensation, it entangles us in this material world. But Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vimuktehi. The same attachment, when it is dovetailed for the pure devotee of Krishna, it immediately liberates a person. So we would have heard many dramas, many biographies, many stories. All such stories, biographies, dramas, they are entangling. They hold a person's attention to this material world, which is a temporary reality. People become elated, happy at times, and remain stressed out most of the times. But everything goes in vain. People leave the body, pick up another body, and the suffering continues. And the quick fix solution, simple solution to come out of it is simply attaching oneself to the activities of a pure devotee. As a person who is dreaming, he gets in contact with any sound which is coming from the real world, he immediately wakes up and all the problems of the dreams are solved immediately. In a similar fashion, if we are able to absorb ourselves and meditate on the pastimes of Lord Krishna or his pure devotee, immediately the door to liberation opens and all the problems of life are solved. This is Bhakti Yoga. It is so simple. But the one which is very important qualification of Bhakti Yoga, which is very, very difficult to have, is the association of pure devotee. And that is what we are going to have over these 30 days every day till Janmashtami. So let us start understanding the activities of Srila Prabhupada, knowing although externally it may appear just the same, just like Lord Krishna's dance with the gopis appears like any other mundane dance, but all these affairs are not mundane. If a person is able to absorb himself or herself in these activities, the door to liberation is opened. So let us try to hear attentively and meditate on these activities. The worldwide fame of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, later known as Srila Prabhupada, was to come after 1965, after he arrived in America. Before leaving India, he had written 3 books. In the next 12 years, he was to write more than 60. Before he had left India, he had initiated 1 disciple. In the next 12 years, he would initiate more than 4,000. Before he left India, hardly anyone had believed that he could fulfill his vision of a worldwide society of Krishna devotees. But in the next decade, he would form and maintain an international society for Krishna consciousness and open more than 100 centers. Before sailing for America, he had never been outside India. But in the next 12 years, he would travel many times around the world propagating the Krishna consciousness movement. Although his life's contribution may appear to have come in a late burst of revolutionary spiritual achievements, the first 69 years of his life were a preparation for those achievements. And although to Americans Prabhupada and his teachings were an unknown sudden appearance, he looked like a genie that popped out of Aladdin's lamp. He was the stalwart representative of centuries-old cultural tradition. So this is very important. What is the meaning of this centuries-old cultural tradition which is mentioned here? So knowledge of Krishna is mentioned in the Vedas, in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, other devotional scriptures. But simply by reading these scriptures, unless somebody is inspired by the transcendental spiritual sound, nobody can understand the spiritual secrets which are embedded in the form of alphabets of these books. So all the sounds that we hear, they are material. Such sounds are of no help on the spiritual path. A person needs to be inspired by the spiritual sound. So how does the spiritual sound descend in this world? It descends in this age-old cultural tradition which is called Guru Parampara. Thus many people, they become spiritual masters today and they very bravely declare at times impudently, I am so wise, or their disciples praise, our Guru is so wise and learned, he does not need to have any spiritual master. He got all the knowledge from within his heart. But Lord Krishna does not declare in Bhagavad Gita this as a bona fide way of receiving knowledge. So it is told, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo viduhu evam parampara praptam. The perfect knowledge of creation was given by Krishna to Brahma. Brahma gave to his disciple Narad. Narad gave to Vedvyas. Vedvyas gave to Madhvacharya. In this way, this parampara knowledge comes down. The spiritual knowledge enters in this material world. So thus, a bona fide representative is required who is completely pure, who is spiritual in nature. He only can pass on a spiritual sound to his disciple. And this process of being inspired Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. People must be writing in chat, no? Or do you... Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. So I'm sorry, the audio went missing. So we were discussing, in case you missed, that how Prabhupada is stalwart representative of Guru Shishya Parampara, and Srila Prabhupada became the carrier of the transcendental sound by which he was supposed to inspire many people. So the proof is Bhagavad Gita was already there, more than 70 editions of the English language before Prabhupada traveled to the West. Even you see the science books and journals of great scientists, the quantum physicists, they also mentioned the principles of Vedanta in Bhagavad Gita. So they were all knowing it. But nobody was able to begin, even though they had appreciation for this wonderful knowledge, nobody was able to tap that spiritual content of it. And thus nobody was able to become a devotee of Krishna, a soul surrendered to Krishna, which is the crux of Bhagavad Gita. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam raja. The problem with the world is, Prabhupada tells, people are trying to invent their own ways of becoming happy. So no, God has made this world. There is a way by which we have to become happy. So if we keep on concocting our own ways, then a person can never actually attain happiness. So exactly the formula has to be taken from this Guru Shishya Parampara and implement in one's life. So all these people, although they were reading Bhagavad Gita, they could not surrender unto Krishna, could not take the formula for happiness, and thus continued their material life. But as soon as Prabhupada Bhagavad Gita came into picture, now you see these books are now also converting and making many people completely surrendered devotees of Krishna. By this we can make out the difference between mundane sound and the spiritual sound which descends in the Guru Shishya Parampara. So Prabhupada was born in Calcutta. His home was at 151 Harrison Road in the Indian section of North Calcutta. So the Calcutta was second city of the Britishers after London. And in the central Calcutta, the Britishers were living with all their theatres and race courses, stadiums. And in the north portion of the Calcutta, Indians were living. Although they were following the British Empire as their rulers, but still they would maintain their cultural traditions. Women would wear saris, men would wear dhoti and kurta, and they would maintain their cultural tradition, remaining loyal at the same time to the British throne. So it was in this area, North Calcutta, 151 Harrison Road, that Prabhupada was living. An entire block of properties on either side of the Harrison Road belonged to Loknath Malik. And Gaur Mohan and his family lived in few rooms of a 3-story building within the Malik properties. Across the street from the day's residence was a Radha Govind temple, where for the past 150 years the Maliks had maintained worship of the deity of Radha Krishna. Various shops on the Malik properties provided income for the deity and for the priests conducting the worship. Every morning before breakfast, the Malik family members would visit the temple to see the deity of Radha Govinda. They would offer cooked rice, kachoris, and vegetables on a large platter and would then distribute the prasadam to the deity's morning visitors from the neighborhood. Among the daily visitors was Abhay Charan, accompanying his mother, father, or servant. So this is very important practice. Visiting the temple of Lord before breakfast and offering prayers. This is called Mangal Aarti, the auspicious beginning of the day. Just like nobody can become an expert surgeon simply by reading the books on surgery. Practical internship under the guidance of an expert surgeon is required. Or any field for that matter. A person is an engineer, a person is lawyer. Simply by reading books, nobody can actually advance in the profession unless they get trained under an already expert person. The same principles apply in spiritual life also. Sometimes people think simply by reading books, I'll become perfect. Knowledge would be revealed, but no. The knowledge is revealed not merely by reading books, but when Krishna is completely convinced by the sincere service attitude of the devotee that he reveals himself. So the knowledge, the intelligence that we have, it is also given by Krishna. Thus we see various species have limited knowledge. Insects, they also have knowledge. How to arrange food, how to have their shelter, how to defend themselves, how to create progeny. Ahar, Nidra, Bhay, Maithun, eating, mating, sleeping, defending. Everybody has got this knowledge. But in human form of life, if a person engages in devotional service of Krishna, he can get knowledge by which he can solve all these problems for good. So when a person engages practically, so one has to read the books nevertheless. Reading books is definitely very important, just like theory is important, but practical has to be done under the guidance of an expert surgeon to become a surgeon. In a similar fashion, one has to read the books and practically engage oneself in the activities of devotional service under the guidance of an expert spiritual master. Only then, Prabhupada tells, if you follow the rules and regulations very strictly. What are the rules and regulations? Very simple. It starts with getting up early in the morning and visiting the deity before you even take your first meal, breakfast. That is called Mangala Aarti. In Brahm Muhurta time before sunrise. If some temple is close by, we can visit the temple where such procedures are happening, or we can do it at our own place. But this is the beginning of the day, Mangala Aarti, auspicious beginning. And after that, one can chant the holy names of Krishna, Hare Krishna mantra on their beads. And then you can read Srimad Bhagavatam, then carry out your duties, whatever job, education, occupation, business you are having. You can engage in that and offer the results of those activities to Krishna. And in the evening, again come back, do some kirtan, again read Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and being absorbed in such transcendental activities and knowledge, go to rest. So simply by following this process, a person can attain eternal platform, solve the process of birth and death. Scientists want to know how to do it, but the Vedas mention it is very simple. Just follow these simple principles every day. It is very simple to do it. But the catch is, one must do these activities under the expert personal guidance of a spiritual master who is pure devotee of Krishna. Then these activities would be successful. So Abhay was fortunate, his father was a pure devotee, and all of them, they were going in the morning to see Mangalarti in the Radha Govind temple. So Prabhupada also narrates this thing, how Prabhupada sometimes he would be taken by his servant on a pram, and Prabhupada had another very nice companion. He was Subudhi. His legal name was Siddheshwar Malik. And both these small children were sitting in the same pram, and they would go to Radha Govind temple. And Prabhupada would tell Subudhi, he was so fond of me, he would call me Moti. His was another of Prabhupada's nickname. And if I am not there in the pram, he would go mad. He would not agree to sit without me. So both these children would go in the pram, go to the Radha Govind temple, and then Prabhupada recollects that people were very tall and they were very, very young, but Prabhupada would stand there at the temple doors and would keep on beholding the beautiful forms of Radha Krishna for many, many hours together. So child is merely 1.5 years old, but he has got memory and is able to appreciate, and he's standing in the temple for hours together. It is not possible for an ordinary child. This is the difference between a Vaishnava and an ordinary birth. So people ask that, what about those people who have taken birth in a different family where there is no Krishna consciousness at all, some different country? Why Krishna is not arranged? Krishna is not arranged because people do not want. As per one's activity, different births are given. When Arjuna asked Krishna, if I start this devotional life, I do not finish it, what would happen to me? So Krishna told, Shuchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Bhrashto Vijayate, there is no loss. If a person's yoga practice remains unfinished, he takes birth either in a very rich family, Srimatam Gehe, Gehe means house of a very rich man, so that he doesn't have to waste time for earning livelihood, he can focus on Krishna consciousness. Or Shuchinam, very pure Brahmana family, which is full of knowledge and purity. And if a person is very, very advanced, or he is Nitya Siddha, Nitya Siddha means these living entities don't take birth as per laws of nature, but they come to this material world to liberate other conditioned souls like us, who are conditioned even before the creation. We are called Nitya Baddhas. So Nitya Siddhas, such as Prabhupada or a very, very advanced Vaishnava, they are given birth in Vaishnava families, just like Prabhupada got, Parikshit Maharaj got in the house of Pandavas, or Mirabai, and all such great devotees, they have similar child history. From the very beginning, they have got devotional atmosphere. So ordinary children, they become restless. But Prabhupada, from the very beginning, child 1.5 years old, he is beholding the beautiful forms. And Prabhupada remembers the deities, their slant eyes, they were so beautiful. For many, many hours, I would keep on beholding the beautiful Radha Govind forms. So Gaur Mohan was a pure Vaishnava, and he raised his son to be Krishna conscious. Since his own parents had also been Vaishnavas, Gaur Mohan had never touched meat, fish, eggs, tea, or coffee. His complexion was fair and his disposition reserved. At night, before locking his cloth shop, he would set a bowl of rice in the middle of the floor to satisfy the rats. So, if the rats are given a bowl of rice, then they would not bite the clothes. He was a cloth merchant. So, rats are satisfied by taking that rice in the bowl. This was his practice. He would lock the shop. On returning home, he would read from Chaitanya Charitamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam, the main scriptures of Bengali Vaishnavas. So, this is how our lifestyle should be. Chanting on his japa beads and worship the deity of Lord Krishna. He was gentle and affectionate and would never punish Abhay. Even when obliged to correct him, he would first apologize. You are my son, so now I must correct you. It is my duty. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's father would chastise him, so don't mind. So Prabhupada would later tell, it looks like Prabhupada's father knew about him. So he was never chastising, even though Abhay, young Srila Prabhupada, was very adamant, was stubborn at times. He was never chastised by his father. On some instances, when he was supposed to do, he would first beg forgiveness. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's father would correct him, so please never mind, as a matter of duty, I have to do this. A picture always remained in Prabhupada's memory of his father's devotional worship of Lord Krishna. He would recall how his father used to come home late at night from the cloth shop and faithfully perform his worship of Lord Krishna before the home altar. We would be sleeping, Prabhupada recalled, and father would be doing arti. We would hear the ding, ding, ding. We would hear the bell and wake up and see him bowing down before Krishna. So these were the activities, the impression which Prabhupada carried of his father. His father would come down, and although they would be asleep, and he would ring the bell doing worship of Krishna, and they would wake up. So Prabhupada told puja was his business. Although he would get up little late in the morning, he would do some essential morning duties, and then 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock, strictly he would engage in puja. 3 hours in the day, in the beginning of the day. And then 1 o'clock onwards, he would go for his shop, and late in the night, he would come back, and again in the evening, he would read Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavatam, worship Krishna, and go to sleep. So this is very simple formula which people have been following for many ages. So we also can apply this simple thing in our life, and a sandwich formula, spiritual, regular duties, offered the results to Krishna, evening again a spiritual program, and the life becomes successful. Gaur Mohan wanted Vaishnava goals for his son. He wanted Abhay to become a servant of Radha and Krishna. So just see, this is a Vaishnava father. Gaur Mohan did not want Abhay to become manager of or the owner of a very big industry, or that of, to get the fame of a very big barrister. Prabhupada's arrangement was there to go to the West, but he told, no, I don't want him to do that. I want him to become a servant of Radha and Krishna. And to that end, he educated his son, gave him all the required material support and education, but ultimately so that he can become servant of Radha and Krishna. He wanted Abhay to become a servant of Radha and Krishna, to become a preacher of Bhagavatam, and to learn the devotional art of playing the mridanga drum. He regularly received sadhus in his home, and he would always ask them, please bless my son, so that Srimati Radharani will grant him her blessings. When Abhay's mother said she wanted her son to become a British lawyer when he grew up, which meant he would have to go to London to study. There was such arrangement. One of the boy's uncles thought it was a good idea, but Gaur Mohan would not hear of it. If Abhay went to England, he might be influenced by European dress and manner. He will learn drinking and woman hunting. Gaur Mohan objected, I do not want his money. From the beginning of Abhay's life, Gaur Mohan introduced his plan. He hired a professional Mridanga player to teach Abhay the standard rhythms for accompanying Kirtana. So just see, from the very early life, when it was even difficult for him to hold a Mridanga teacher was arranged by Gaur Mohan Day. Rajni was skeptical. What is the purpose of teaching such a young child to play the Mridanga? It is not important. But Gaur Mohan had his dream of a son who would grow up singing bhajans, playing Mridanga and speaking on Srimad Bhagavatam. Abhay's mother Rajni was 30 years old when he was born. Like her husband, she came from a long-established Gaudiya Vaishnava family. She was darker skinned than her husband, and whereas his disposition was cool, hers tended to be fiery. Abhay saw his mother and father living together peacefully. No deep marital conflict or complicated dissatisfaction ever threatened home. This is the life of Vaishnava. So a person who is devotee, he is satisfied, he can remain happily even in household life, which is otherwise full of so many troubles and miseries. Rajni was chaste and religious minded, a model housewife in the traditional Vedic sense, dedicated to caring for her husband and children. Abhay observed his mother's simple and touching attempts to ensure by prayers and vows that he continued to live. Like Gaur Mohan, Rajni treated Abhay as the pet child. But whereas her husband expressed his love through leniency and plans for his son's spiritual success, she expressed hers through attempts to safeguard Abhay from all danger, disease and death. At Abhay's birth, she vowed to eat with her left hand until the day her son would notice and ask her why she was eating with the wrong hand. When one day little Abhay asked, she immediately stopped. It had been just another prescription for his survival, since she thought that by the strength of her vow, he would continue to grow, at least until he asked her about the vow. His mother would often take him to the Ganges and personally bathe him. When he got dysentery, she cured it with hot puris and fried eggplant with salt. Sometimes when he was ill, Abhay would show his obstinacy by refusing to take any medicine. But just as he was stubborn, his mother was determined, and she would forcibly administer medicine into his mouth. When Abhay had been unwilling to attend school, his father had remained lenient. Okay, he will go other day. While Rajni insisted and even hired a man to escort him to the school. So Prabhupada was very, very stubborn. Once his mother wanted to take him for bath, but Abhay was very, very adamant, I will not take bath. And he hit his head on the floor. So Prabhupada told, what are you doing? You will kill the child. So Prabhupada tells another instance. Once they were going near a few shops, and Abhay immediately got attracted to a toy gun. And he told, Father, I want a gun. So he told, no, I will not give you. What is the need of a gun? But then he started crying. He started throwing his hands and legs, sat on the floor. And his father told, okay, I will give you a gun. And then told, no, not one, I want two guns. So his father asked, why you want two guns? So Abhay told, one for this hand and one for this. So I want two guns. So very nice and charming activities of Srila Prabhupada. Throughout northern India, Lord Krishna is accepted by the great majority of people as a supreme form of God. This version of Krishna is actually in accordance with the Vedic scriptures, especially the Bhagavad Gita, which is most widely read Vedic literature. Naturally, therefore, Abhay imbibed Krishna consciousness from his very birth. Moreover, his father was particularly religious, and in later years, Prabhupada would refer to him as a pure devotee of Krishna. Gaur Mohan used to take his son even before the child was old enough to walk to a nearby temple of Radha Krishna, known as Radha Govind Mandir. Prabhupada later recalled, as we just discussed, standing at the doorway of the Radha Govind temple, saying prayers to Radha Govind Murti for hours together. The deity was so beautiful with his slanted eyes. So even before he was old enough to walk, he was going there, and Prabhupada recollects this wonderful thing. These are the signs of Nitya Siddha. Prabhupada tells, there has never been a moment in this life when I have forgotten Krishna even for a single moment. This is the sign of a pure devotee. All the external activity could be like a materialist, but within their heart, they don't forget Krishna even for a single moment. Abhay was also enamored, not with some mundane rock and roll, some mundane sports, but what enamored Abhay was the Rath Yatra festival of Lord Jagannath held yearly in Calcutta. The biggest Calcutta Rath Yatra was held at the Radha Govind Mandir with 3 separate carts bearing the deities of Jagannath, Balram and Subhadra. So Prabhupada was very much enchanted by Rath Yatra festival. And Prabhupada also, when he was merely 6 years old, he demanded, Father, I also want a Ratha. I want to have this Rath Yatra. And then his father arranged for a cart, miniature cart, and they would paint it and arrange the canopies on top of the cart to make it look like the actual carts of Rath Yatra Puri festival. And Abhay organized his neighbors, small children. He would request the neighborhood people, all the other mothers, that please make some special dishes. I want to organize, and just on the lines of the great actual Rath Yatra festival, Prabhupada also would organize every year 8-day Rath Yatra festivals. 6 years old, just see. And he is having Rath Yatra festivals. And the children always, think of visiting some theme park or some other place of entertainment. Prabhupada's desire was, when I would go to Jagannath Puri and Vrindavan. So Prabhupada would sometimes go to railway station, would check the train timetable, would check the train fare. He would always think, when would the right time come? When will I be able to make it to Jagannath Puri and Vrindavan Dham? These were the desires of Prabhupada. When Abhay was about 6 years old, he asked his father for a deity of his own to worship. Since infancy, he had watched his father doing puja at home and had been regularly seeing the worship of Radha Govinda and thinking, when will I be able to worship Radha Krishna like this? See, so children get inspired from the parents. So it is not by chance that a person takes birth in a Vaishnava family. So Abhay was inspired, and even though he's 6-year-old child, he is thinking, when can I worship? And he demanded, my dear father, please give me also the deities, I want to worship them. Gaurmandal purchased a pair of little Radha Krishna deities and gave them to his son. From then on, whatever young Abhay ate, he would offer first to Radha and Krishna, and imitating his father and the priest of Radha Govinda, he would offer his deities a ghee lamp and put them to rest at night. So Prabhupada would later tell that all the things which I am doing now, all the things I learned from my father. Even when he was 6 years old, he was doing all these things, taking care of the deities, not eating anything which is not first offered to Radha Govinda, and would put the deities to rest at night, would worship them like the priest is worshipping in the temple. But Prabhupada told, one very special thing I learned from my Guru Maharaj, which I could not from my father, and that is publication and distribution of these transcendental literatures, these books. During Abhay's college years, now he went to college. His father arranged for his marriage, selecting Radha Rani Datta, the daughter of a merchant family with whom he was associated. For several years, Abhay lived with his family and she with hers. So although she was very young, around 11 years, and Srila Prabhupada was around 20 plus when they got married. So child marriage has got a great merit. It is not that they would start living immediately together. No, Prabhupada continued his college life and she was at her house. But the marriage is done early because before these desires arise of attraction towards the opposite sex, people already know that I have a partner, and thus they become very, very chaste. This chastity is very, very important for success of any marital relationship. So although they were living separately, even after marriage, they got married at a very young age. So his marital responsibilities of supporting a family were not immediate. First, he had to finish college. But during his 4th year of college, Abhay began to feel reluctant about accepting his degree. He had become a sympathizer to the national cause, which advocated national schools and self-government. In the class 1 year ahead of Abhay was a very spirited nationalist. Who was he? Subhash Chandra Bose, who was later to become the leader of the Indian National Army, formed to overthrow the British rule of India. When Subhash Chandra Bose urged the students to support the Indian independence movement, Abhay listened. He liked Bose's faith in spirituality, his enthusiasm and determination. Abhay wasn't interested in political activity, but the ideal of the independence movement appealed to him. The call to Swaraj independence, although covert, attracted virtually all the students and Abhay among them. Abhay was specially interested in Mohandas Gandhi. Gandhi always carried a Bhagavad Gita and spoke of being guided by the Gita above all other books. He was pure in his personal habits, abstaining from intoxication, meat eating, and illicit sex. He lived simply like a sadhu, yet he seemed to have more integrity than the begging sadhus Abhay had seen so many times. Abhay read Gandhi's speeches and followed his activities. Maybe Gandhi, he thought, could carry spirituality in the field of action. Gandhi called on Indian students to forsake their studies. The foreign schools, he said, instilled a slave mentality. They made one no more than a puppet in the hands of the British. Still, a college degree was the basis of a life's career. Abhay weighed the choices carefully, and in the 1920, after completing his fourth year of college and passing his examination, refused to accept his diploma. In this way, he registered his protest and signaled his response to Gandhi's call. After the killing at Jallianwala Bagh, where British soldiers had shot to death hundreds of unarmed Indians who had gathered for a peaceful meeting, Gandhi called for a complete non-cooperation and boycott of everything British. In refusing his degree, Abhay was moving to align himself more closely with Gandhi's independence movement. Although Abhay's father was disturbed, he didn't resent his son's action. He was more concerned for Abhay's future than for the destiny of India's politics. He therefore arranged for good employment for Abhay through a prominent friend of the family, Dr. Kartik Chandra Bose. Dr. Bose, a distinguished surgeon and chemical industrialist, had his own establishment, Bose's Laboratory, in Calcutta, and he gladly accepted Abhay as a department manager in his firm. So Srila Prabhupada became a Gandhian, a follower of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, because he thought Mahatma Gandhi would be the one who would practically take the teachings of Bhagavad Gita in the field to the common people. But he was not very much satisfied with the movement. And although he was part of the Gandhian movement, he started wearing khadi clothes. Prabhupada's father was concerned about the future. He was to become a great preacher. He is supposed to establish 1 or 8 temples. He was always teaching him Mridanga. He saw him becoming a preacher of Srimad Bhagavatam. So he tried to arrange a nice means of livelihood for Abhay. Thus, he got him engaged as a manager in Dr. Bose's laboratory. So Prabhupada narrates one very nice understanding from his work as a manager in this lab. So Prabhupada had a very, very responsible position, and Dr. Bose was treating Abhay as his own son. And the most confidential responsibilities were given to him. And although many people were contesting for the post of senior manager, Abhay was directly appointed on that post. So sometimes they became little envious of Abhay. And once Abhay escalated the issues with one of his subordinates who was not doing his work properly. And then the owner became so much disgusted with this employee, he immediately removed him from the post. Then Srila Prabhupada explained, I understood, I realized practically how it is very important to become servant of the servant, and that is the principle of Bhakti Yoga. So we have to satisfy our immediate authority. If our immediate authority is not satisfied, the proprietor of the company is naturally dissatisfied. In the same way, Prabhupada would tell, Yasya prasadat bhagvat prasado. If spiritual master is satisfied, Lord Krishna is automatically satisfied. So the very simple process of Bhakti Yoga, it begins when a person understands this fundamental principle. In order to please Krishna, to make my life successful, I have to surrender to a bona fide spiritual master and please and satisfy him by my sincere service. And not just the spiritual master, but his servants, my immediate authority. Thus Srila Prabhupada would tell, you call each other Prabhu. In our movement, we call each other Prabhu. Prabhu means master. I am your servant and you are my master. So the servant attitude is very much required to make one's life successful. So Prabhupada would tell not just that you are calling others Prabhu, but you should feelingly know that you are servant and others are your master. In this way, when a person is able to have this vision, everyone is my master, I am the servant, then a person makes very quick advancement in the spiritual life. Now we are done with the Prabhupada's pastime of his birth and college. Although these pastimes are also very, very sweet, many things we could not cover. Just few things we have discussed here. For elaborate understanding, you can refer to detailed 7 volumes of biography of Srila Prabhupada. But nevertheless, it is very, very important. Few very important things we will be discussing every day. So I request all of you to please come regularly and try to, when you go to bed, try to meditate on these pastimes, so that daily if you are able to absorb yourself, it will become a natural habit. And thus you will be always able to think of Lord Krishna and his pure devotee. Tomorrow is time for a very special topic. One of the very, very important moments in the life of a devotee is this encounter, meeting with the spiritual master. That is called second birth. First birth we have, everybody has, even animals have from biological parents. But a person who is supposed to make spiritual life perfect, he is expected to take second birth. He is supposed to become Dvija, and that happens by spiritual master. So how Srila Prabhupada got his second birth, how he met and surrendered to his spiritual master, that we will see. Please do not miss tomorrow. So now there is a special gift for the lucky devotee today. And the special gift will be given to the devotee who gives the right answer of the question which I am going to ask. And this answer, please do not post in the live chat. This answer should be given in the comments. I repeat again. Okay, so the answer. Okay, beg your pardon. You should give in the live chat, not in the comments. So in the live chat, please explain, and the people who answer correctly, first 50 people. So every day we will have this nice activity. So among the first 50 devotees who give the right answer, we will choose one lucky devotee, and that devotee would be given transcendental gift from our side. So can you please explain what was the nickname given to Prabhupada when he was riding on his pram to visit the Radha Govind temple with his pram friend Siddheshwar Malik? I repeat the question. Please explain the nickname of Prabhupada which was given to him by his pram mate Siddheshwar Malik. Please post your answer in the chat box. Meanwhile, if anybody has any questions, that also you can ask. I'll be answering. Do we have any questions? Yeah. Okay, somebody is writing Nandulal. That is not the right answer. Some people have heard it nicely. Okay. So the answer is clear now, I think. Most of you have figured it rightly. Yes, it is Moti. It is Moti. Moti means pearls. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the nice answers, right answers. I think we have got 50 responses. Yes, so we can take up some questions now. Okay. Prabhu, sometimes we preach about Krishna consciousness, but people don't believe of the authenticity of our parampara. How to convince them? So first of all, you request them to take out time to understand if any coaching institute is authentic or not. You go there, you study the books and meet with the teachers over there, so that if a person does, they will be able to understand. And secondly, you can see by the result, if from any coaching institutes, people are regularly cracking a competitive examination with high ranks, that means it's nice. So what is the instruction of Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita? Sar dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam raja man mana bhav mad bhakto. That whether we are able to make people devotees of Krishna or not, whether devotees are able to surrender themselves to Krishna or not, whether their material desires are reducing or not, and all this is widely evident by not just people of this country, all across the world. This impact has been created through this glorious parampara of which we are part of. I think these two things would suffice. Hare Krishna, how a woman should dress according to the Vedas? Very nice question. So women and men, they are supposed to wear very nicely using dhoti and kurta, chadar is a dress for men, and women should wear dhoti or saris, as you know, in India we still know it. And the culture is the head also should be covered with the sari. And one Mataji was very nicely explaining. So these days women want empowerment, and then somehow they are wearing some dresses which may not be very good, and somehow there is molestation and like that. And this devotee Mataji was telling, now that I'm following Krishna consciousness, I dress myself in this regular traditional attire. So people also respect when I walk with my head covered and I have very nice sari, very decently I am dressed. Automatically, I am able to save myself from any such attempts. So thus this is called empowerment. So what is this empowerment? When harassment is increasing, empowerment means nobody is harassing you. And simply this nice decent sari dress gives a woman power by which she can defend herself. So this is the actual dress as per the Vedic tradition. Why are some people not ready to accept Srila Prabhupada as an authentic authority? It makes me feel bad during preaching. So that is the duty of a preacher. Preacher is supposed to educate the people. So you please become learned, and still some people would not be willing to take. So as we were discussing, it is Krishna's arrangement how and to what degree a person will be able to expose and assimilate Krishna consciousness. So give them prasadam, give them books, and gradually when they read the books, they'll purify. When they hear Sankirtan, when they honor prasadam, so anybody can hear Sankirtan or they can eat prasadam. So try to induce them in this way to come to Krishna consciousness, and slowly when they are pious enough, they will be able to accept this fact. What is the daily schedule according to Vedas? So daily schedule we discussed. In the morning before Brahm Muhurta, we should get up. Brahm Muhurta begins 90 minutes before sunrise, and we should take bath as soon as we get up. After taking bath, we should do Mangal Aarti. We should worship the deities in our house. If we are not following deity standards, there are some standards recommended. You can keep pictures of Lord Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, Srila Prabhupada in your house, and then you can worship them, offer Mangal Aarti. And after Aarti, you can chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. You can decide how many rounds you can chant, do not reduce that. After chanting, you can read or hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and then honor prasadam, or in other words, eat food which is offered to Krishna. And then you can carry on with your duties. In the evening again, come read or hear Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, do little kirtan, and then go to bed. In this way, Vedas define our lifestyle. How should a student stay in order to be very focused and also be Krishna conscious? So Prabhupada explains, anybody who can focus on the lotus feet of Krishna can focus on anything. So our mind is always disturbed because mind is lacking satisfaction. When Krishna's lotus feet are impressed upon the mind, that is why this morning program, Mangala Arati, deity worship, is important. In the morning when you are meditating on the feet of Krishna, even when we are doing deity worship, we should focus on the lotus feet of Krishna. And praying to Krishna, please always remain in my heart. In this way, when we are able to keep impression of Krishna within our heart, then automatically mind becomes focused, and we can do studies for Krishna's satisfaction. We can engage our mind efficiently in whatever activities we wish to do. to offer the results of such activities to Krishna. So please become Krishna conscious, that will help you. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, are Varnashrama system only for men? No, Varnashrama system is meant for everybody. Men, women, everybody has got a duty to perform, specific duty. Hare Krishna, it's mostly asked why Prabhupada did prachar in Europe, why not India? What is the answer we should give? No, this is not right. Prabhupada did prachar in India also. When Prabhupada was living, one of the biggest temples were temples of Mayapur, Vrindavan, Bombay, and Prabhupada was focusing all across the world. But specifically, Prabhupada's mission, what his Guru Maharaj gave him to preach in the Western countries. So that is why Prabhupada started with the West, but Prabhupada covered each and every continent, towns and villages. Prabhuji, what do you suggest if I chant 16 rounds at the time of Mangal Aarti and then decorate the altar and offer Darshan Aarti? Since after that I listen to Bhagavatam, after that I engage in other things. So there should be a fixed time for Aarti. You can do Mangal Aarti or Darshan Aarti. So before that time, chanting also can be done. That is also fine. Can we do chanting first and then do deity worship? Yeah, that also can be done. But as far as possible, time of deity worship should be fixed. So just like now in our temple, 4:15 in the morning, we do deity worship. But many devotees, they chant their rounds even before 4:15. So that is possible. But deity worship time is fixed 4:15. So as much as we are punctual, we are regular, and we have promptness in deity worship, to that degree we will advance. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, since there are 4 valid sampradaya for taking knowledge, how can one decide which sampradaya to follow if one has been learning from 2 or more different institutions? So Lord Chaitanya, being very merciful, he has summarized all 4 sampradayas into one, and thus he inaugurated this Sankirtan mission. So Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself. So if a person follows Lord Chaitanya, he is perfectly following the teachings of all 4 sampradayas. And thus Bhaktivinoda Thakur also foresaw in future, and Bhaktivinoda Maharaj proclaimed the same, that I see all Vaishnava sampradayas coming together and following this path of Lord Chaitanya. So simply if we follow Lord Chaitanya, everything is successful. Thank you so much for all your nice questions. We will meet tomorrow again, and very soon we will see. We will let you know who is the lucky devotee who has got transcendental gift from our side. Let us try to meditate, sing the glories of Prabhupada. Thank you so much for hearing. We'll see you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.